what I think is going on, this is my summary, but it's not my invention, this is the news, is that the group of globalists, everyone involved in this new reset, global economy, one world order, all of that, anywhere, and enforcing the jab, the COVID vaccine, which is a pathological weapon to destroy our body. That's what it is. And if you haven't felt it, if you've taken the COVID vaccine and you feel just fine, that is working in your body to destroy it. There's an article today on LifeSite News by, I think it's a Dr. McCullough, I have to look it up, who explains exactly what happens with those vaccines. And what I've gathered from all the reports is that the George Soroses of the world, the Bill Gates, everybody involved in this reset, so to speak, and the Holy Father is their spiritual leader. I don't hesitate to say it because I'm not revealing anything that hasn't been all over the news and the Vatican and every place else.
Let me preface this video by asserting that I am in no way seeking to disparage anyone's religion. My first wife was a Catholic. My current wife is a Catholic. My best friend since I was 18 is a Catholic. I have no problem with Catholics. However, I'm gonna talk about the papacy, how it began and how it evolved. And at the end of the video, I'm going to make a point that if you'll stay with it, you'll see. And I'll just read this here. With the influence of Constantine, who made Christianity a religion of power, the bishops strengthened and increased their privileges. During this time, there were 5 metropolises: Rome, Alexandria, Antioch, Constantinople, and Jerusalem. Rome in the west and Constantinople in the east gained greater preeminence because of their locations. Of course, Rome was the capital of the Western Roman Empire, and Constantinople was the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. This marked the beginning of an evolution towards centralized authoritarian power. And there's an argument that could even be made that Constantine himself was the first pope. But we'll look into that. Constantine even declared himself to be a bishop, and he and his successors convened councils of bishops to address important matters of the faith. He, as all Roman emperors, held the title of Pontifex Maximus, as do popes today. And it became the official religion of the Roman Empire under Theodosius in 380 AD. It seems that Constantine was sitting around with some of the bishops at some kind of a banquet, and he made the comment to them that he considered himself to be a bishop.
Is that they want to control the world population, completely have us under their control. The world population is too big. And so this COVID vaccine has been invented to eliminate us, to kill off a great percentage of the population so that what's left, they have a reasonable hope. I hate to use those words of Bishop Barron, a reasonable hope of killing and controlling the rest of us. So I don't think such a horror book has ever been written, horror novel has ever been written, but it's true. And I believe it 100%. And I think our time is limited, very limited now, for this reign of evil, of persecution, of death to truly take hold of us.
Now, the Roman bishop was gaining preeminence among all the other bishops. They were making that argument. And all 4th century emperors expected each new Roman bishop to be presented to them for approval. And in 366, Damasus succeeded to the papacy amidst factional violence. The plebeians, that's the ordinary folks, supported a guy named Ursinius, and the patricians, that'd be the senators and all the uppity-ups, they supported this election of this guy Damasus. The two guys were elected simultaneously, but Damasus hired a gang of thugs which carried out a 3-day massacre of the Ursinians. And I think you can tell by the fact that he massacred all those people that Damasus saw the office as being principally political. By this time, the power of Rome in the Western Roman Empire was becoming very unstable. The church began to assume greater political influence to fill the power vacuum. Damasus was aggressive in asserting centralized religious control of the church from Rome, presumably at the behest of the emperor to indirectly assert his authority. Popes who defied the emperor's wishes pertaining to theology were jailed. For instance, Agapetus was thrown in jail because he was threatened with jail because he didn't want to allow the worship of Mary in the Roman Church. And the Roman emperor said, no, you're going to do that. Also, Vigilius, he was jailed because he kind of believed in reincarnation and universal salvation. And, of course, the Roman emperor didn't like that because too many slaves were killing themselves. So they didn't like that. So they jailed Vigilius until he capitulated and changed his mind. Essentially, the emperor was exerting his power throughout the Roman Empire, the Western Roman Empire, by the influence of the bishops and the church. It was a means of creating some stability, which the Western Roman Empire sorely lacked.
Because, as we've heard from many, the forces of evil, as announced by President Biden concerning his own thoughts, are growing impatient. We're too slow in obeying. We're too slow to buy into their false statements. We're too slow to obey their dictates. We're just too slow, and we're holding back the reign of evil. So what's wrong with us? We need to be put away. We need to be silenced. And so I say to you, beloved, that evil is coming upon us, but I think we don't have much time. I don't even think it's a few months from now that we're going to experience what we've never imagined. So now is the time. Now, today is the day of salvation. If you hear his voice, don't harden your hearts.
Next, we come to Siricius of Hadrumentum, and he followed Damasus. Despite Damas's efforts to establish the preeminence of Rome and his pontificate, he did not finish his work. After his death in December 384, Siricius was elected as the pontiff of Rome. Siricius claimed inherent authority without consideration of the scriptures. He demanded and threatened others in order to gain more and more power. He was the first to refer to himself as Peter's heir. He is sometimes said to have been the first bishop of Rome to call himself Pope. And he justified the primacy of the Roman bishop by linking it to Peter and Peter being crucified in Rome. And, he ignored scriptures in his assertion of that.
I hope also that he will try to convince cardinals. Now, there's 5 cardinals that are objecting to the synod, so they have some Catholicism in them, we might say. Cardinals are key in this. And I would hope that he would convince them to come together and elect a real Catholic Pope. It's the only way we're going to get out of this problem in the church. The only way. Talking will do no good. Doing what we do, that is saying Mass for small groups around the country and in the world, that's only a stopgap measure. It will not solve the problem in the church. And the problem in the church must be solved where it began, and that is in the election of someone who is a true pope and not some phony pope with an evil intention.
Now, when the Roman Empire finally started to fall apart in the latter part of the 5th century, there had to be some kind of an infrastructure to administer the basic functions of society. And the only organization that was left intact was the church. Following the collapse of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD, the Christian church assumed an even greater control of the bureaucratic infrastructure. As the empire's administrative and political structures disintegrated, the church's hierarchical organization, with its networks of bishops, presbyters, and deacons, provided a framework for the administration of religious and social affairs in the West. The Christian church played a significant role in the collection of taxes for monarchs, particularly during the Middle Ages. The church's role in the collection of taxes for monarchs was an important aspect of the administrative and political power during this period, with the church often serving as a key intermediary between monarchs and their subjects. Popes, they approved monarchs. You couldn't be a king unless the Pope gave you the go-ahead, the okie dokie. And, of course, naturally, since they were collecting the taxes, they controlled the purse strings. And I think you can see the enormous influence, the enormous secular influence that the papacy had acquired. Now, of course, any organization that acquires this much power is going to attract some very corrupt individuals. Dare I say it, psychopathic individuals. That's just the way power works. Kings, princes, they would all try to get their cardinals installed as pope so that they could control the political zeitgeist in Europe. And the whole thing festered in the Renaissance. And then you had guys like the Borgias with their orgies in the Vatican. And then you had Della Rovere, who became Julius II, and he was a notorious homosexual. And you had the de Medicis; they were getting their relatives installed into the office. It essentially became a secular force masquerading as religion, if it hadn't always been that. And, the people, they got a belly full of that. The ordinary people were disgusted by it. And you had guys like Savonarola in Florence try to lead some kind of a reformation. Savonarola failed, though. He was burned. The people of Florence got sick of him because he was such a monastic and he expected everybody to be poor, which, of course, that didn't fly at all in Florence. But then a few years later, old Martin Luther comes along with his 95 Theses on the door of Wittenberg Cathedral, and the next thing you know, the Protestant Reformation catches fire. Now, why is all this important today? Think about it. If secular authority and political forces tried to determine who the Pope was 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, what makes you think they're not doing it now? The current Pope is going to legalize or authorize homosexual marriages, from what I've heard. And there are a lot of other stuff. There's a lot of other stuff. I'm sure if you're a Catholic, you know about it. So just ask yourself, why is he doing this? Who put him there? Who's behind him? I would submit that the people who put him there are the same people who are pushing wokie-dokieism here in the United States. Big corporations controlling the presidency and the Congress. We have a deep state here in the United States, and what makes you think for 1 second there wouldn't be a deep state in the Vatican? Money talks and bullshit walks. And I kind of got a feeling that there's a whole lot of money behind this Pope, and they put him there. Whoever they are, the powers that be, I got the feeling they put him there, just like popes 500 years ago, just like popes 1,000 years ago. This is one of the reasons why I'm big on villainizing centralized authoritarian power in any form, because the devil is always able to get a grip when you only have a narrow clique at the top who control everything, an organization. And if it continues in the current trend, with the current trend, I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see various Catholic churches around the world breaking off and starting alternate Catholic churches with alternate popes. It's been done before. Remember they called it the Babylonian exile, when the Pope was installed in Avignon and you had 2 popes. But anyway, I just thought I'd give folks something to think about. No offense intended. Believe me, none intended at all.